wanted to own it, just wanted to take the time, learn all the things that I could about you. Now it's such a mess here, oh, we are distressed here. Used to be so easy with you.
Okay. Welcome to Everything Sparkle. Hey, Mike. So, Mike, tell us what you got going on. You do a lot of stuff kind of like I do, but like in the sports world.
Yeah, so, and I think that's kind of why I like connected and gravitated towards your work, because I was like, oh, there's so many people out there who do what I do, like, and they just don't get the recognition. It's kind of, I mean, not to say like I'm not in that boat, but I do like a lot of combat sports stuff, mainly UFC stuff, where I interview fighters. I write news articles when it drops. I'm not necessarily a reporter. I don't even know if I would even consider myself a journalist. I just consider myself part of the media. And more than anything, I just like to be like a storyteller. So I feel like, especially as someone who started in like covering the NFL and MLB and NBA at such a young age, I felt like I was able to do that because I was connecting with players, like professional athletes, on a different level. Like I wasn't asking them, why did they miss this shot, or why did they throw 2 interceptions? It was all just about like who they are as like people. And once I found and got into like mixed martial arts and UFC, not so much boxing, although sometimes I'll dip my toes in the water in the boxing world. But once I started seeing that, I'm seeing people who are getting into a cage, either in the professional level or on the regional level, and fighting for a third or maybe a tenth of their value to their sport and all the bodily harm that they do to themselves. You would think they'd make more money. And I've just found myself getting a really close connection with a lot of fighters, and I've been doing this for about the last 5-6 years now.
How did you get into it? How did you just go up and be like, was it just an interest in the sports in general?
So I was like always like not against it, but I was always like, who wants to like get paid to get punched in the face? Like I was like, who wakes up and is like, you know what I'm gonna do today? I'm gonna get punched in the face.
The $1 million question.
Right. But then like to get very deep here, as someone who's been very open and struggles with mental health, I kind of realized like it takes a special person, not a crazy person. It takes a special person to say, I'm going to go get beat up. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to go back and then I'm going to do it again. And so for me, it was always about that emotional draw to the sport. And he's the biggest name in the sport now. But, I remember 5-6 years ago. So I was 22 or 23 doing sports radio in downtown Chicago. I was like, this is a dream come true. I did a show with a former Bears player that I grew up watching. And for the 3 hours that we were on air, I was like, I can't believe this is happening. Now I was a fill-in, but like that one time, like it was just everything to me. So I thought I was going to use that as like a resume booster. And I thought that station got like taken down, like out of nowhere. Like they just,
no.
Yeah. Like they found out on air that they were shutting down the station at the end of the year. I was like, okay, well there goes that. So I moved to the Jersey area right outside of Philly. Thought I was getting a job in Philly. Pretty much got ghosted worse than any second date ever. And I lived there for 3 months and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing in my life now. Like I still had my own podcast. I still had everything I was doing, but like I was living at my friend's parents' house, like with him. And I was like, I can't do this. So I will never forget this night. I was like, hey man, like it's nothing against you. I just got to go back home. Like I got to go back home because I'm a graduate of the Illinois Media School. So they offered me like the opportunity to come back as a graduate and still like host a show downtown Chicago. So I was like, all right, well, it's not radio, it's like internet radio, but I'm just going to do it anyways. So I moved back home, and the night I was packing everything up, I was up and I was like, you know what? I've never given this UFC stuff any type of chance. It's on. There's nothing else on. I'm going to watch it. And it happened to be like an old Conor McGregor fight that I had thought was like live. And then he won and jumped over the cage and started screaming at a guy who he would eventually fight like months later. And I was like texting everybody the next morning. I'm like, who's this crazy Irish guy? I was like, I love this guy. This guy's my world. And everyone's like, hey, bro, we know you're moving, but like that guy fights this weekend. So if you push back your move, we'll all go out for the fight. And I was like, done. And literally since that fight, it was UFC 189. I have not missed a single UFC event. The Singapore events that were going on before COVID at like 3 o'clock in the morning, I'd wake up for. Like, I don't miss a single UFC event.
Now you're diehard. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Diehard is kind of like an understatement. I mean, there's UFC, there's Bellator, there's a lot of great promotions out there. It's hard for me to. There's a lot of great people in this sport, and they can cover all of them. But I don't have the bandwidth to cover all of them in my head. So I really focus on just a few of the major players as far as promotions go. But I just kind of found myself, I was chasing a dream of being, I guess, an NFL reporter. And then I just found myself doing what I felt I wanted to truly do and was happy with doing once I got into combat sports.
So did you end up interviewing Conor McGregor at any point?
No, but I've met him. So, so to me, and I get asked that a lot. And I try not to fan out, but when you meet the guy who got you started in the sport, you got to take a personal moment there, excuse me. And that's what I did. I've been fortunate though to make a lot of great friendships and a lot of great connections on a personal and professional level while being in this combat sports world. The team that represents Conor McGregor treats me very nice, and they've got a lot of fighters. I do, because there's a lot of people, and if you don't mind, just to name drop a couple of them.
Do it. We love that.
Ariel Helwani, who's leaving ESPN. I was 6 months into the sport, and he emailed me after me emailing him months and months. He was like, "Hey, do you have any room on my show for me?" I was like, "I will cancel every guest I have." Yes, yes. And Ariel and a few others, Mark and Brett over at ESPN, just to be able to say that, Sparkle, to say 3 names at ESPN, I can pick up the phone and talk to any single day, or if I have industry questions, they're right there. Tell that to 19-year-old Mike who was chasing the football dream, and they'd be like, I would tell you no, because no disrespect, and I do know a couple people in regular sports radio at ESPN, but I don't have the availability to them like I do the people inside the combat sports world. Another good friend of mine, Stats, the thing I've learned about combat sports is you're gonna fight again most of the time. So win or loss, there's still a story to be told. And as long as you're not that arrogant, ignorant, D-bag media member, you're gonna if you come in and you're like, why'd you lose? Like, what? What are you talking? Why did I lose? What? Or if you call out something wrong, during so I don't even like to talk to fighters after a loss. I mean, I've got to have a good connection with them first, but I just mean the door opened up a little bit, and I've had so many people hold the door open for me in the sport that my mom to this day and my friends and family say, we wish you would go back to covering football and basketball. I'm like, no, I was never granted the access that I have now.
So was it just the players were unacceptable, they weren't attainable because they were so busy, or you just could never even get to their people or their agents or their sports teams? What was the problem with that?
I think it was a little of everything, right? So NFL teams don't want their multi-million-dollar player talking to a 20-year-old, 22-year-old kid.
So you were kind of on the younger side. You don't think that you had your feet wet enough to?
Yeah. And it depends on the sport, right? Football was always the hardest. Basketball was a little difficult as well, but basketball players do so much in the community and that's where I kind of got away with doing so much stuff that I did at a young age, because I was well, I know, I'm in Chicago. I'm I know the Cubs and Bears and Bulls, they're not going to give me, when I was that age, Derrick Rose was the hottest name in the basketball world. I wasn't getting Derrick Rose to do my podcast. I just wasn't getting it. Probably still not getting that to this day. But I would look for players who wanted to give back to the community or were doing charity events across Chicago. And, I'll say this, out of all pro sports teams, I've made the most connections with current and former Bears players, but that's because they do the most publicly to give back to the community. And for me, it was never about, hey, why did you guys lose to the Packers for the 100th time since I've been alive? It was, why does it matter so much to give back to the community when you're making millions of dollars and, that kind of stuff. And that's where I feel I resonate with them. But to answer the question in long form, I just think the access was different, but I think it was also the public perception, right? So, and I feel like I do this in any interview I do. when I got into combat sports and Conor McGregor drew me in, Joe Rogan kept me here. And I've never had the opportunity to interact with him at all. But the way he interviews, and at first I only watched when he would interview fighters. But then I started getting in, and just because I watched, I got to say this, just because I watched Joe Rogan doesn't mean I support every single word that comes out of his mouth. There's something to him and the way he speaks to every guest, no matter from what walk of life that they are on, that I resonate with. How he gets them to break down their walls, and just that's what's kept me in this sport, because it's so much easier to talk about that with people who are getting into a cage and fighting. Tom Brady's not going to do a podcast where I just talk about his life, and when you talk about the public perception for me in sports radio, I can't convince 50-year-old John that 23-year-old Mike knows exactly what he's talking about when it comes to the history of the Chicago Bears. They're going to be like, what does that kid know? I heard it all the time. So for me, an amazing new sport, still relatively a young sport compared to everything else. People are growing with the sport every single day, and these fighters have stories to tell. So I'm just going to give them a platform to tell them.
What's one of the most shocking stories that you heard? Who surprised you the most?
I don't know if there's one that surprised me the most. I'll say the one that hit the deepest, and that is Jared Gordon. And I swear every single day I feel like I bring this man up. He's a UFC featherweight. He either fights at featherweight or lightweight. He's done both. He has overcome addiction twice. His story is widely public. He's gone through so much. I would encourage people to look him up. Jared is someone, being in the media, they say don't be friends with the people you cover or whatever. Yeah, that got thrown out the window for me very quickly. Because, again, I'm not here to talk about wins, losses, or technique. I'm here to tell stories.
Right.
I'm here to offer up a platform for a person to tell the story they want to tell it.
That hasn't been told, or a question they haven't been asked, right?
Right.
Authentic to your.
And so Jared is someone who's gone through what so many people in this world get, they go unheard from, even those who beat, addiction, they never get heard from. And, I would say in my time, my interview with Jared, the first time I ever spoke to him, and then the friendship we created, and he has picked up the phone during some of the hardest personal times of my life. It doesn't have to. And that's what I found in this combat sports world. It's those stories, and I'm going to take from the guy I just complimented, and Joe Rogan. He has a very famous quote saying that he loves a success story, but what he loves more than a success story is someone who kind of destroys their lives and gets it back together. He loves those stories. The comeback story is better. And I'm the same way. I'm the same way. I'm very, very, very open on social media. I am. And, I haven't had the easiest of success. And, I'm not saying I have a comeback story, but there's a reason why I interview the way I do. And it's because I understand, you don't just wake up, go into a gym or go onto the practice field and life is all, roses and millions of dollars. It's not. And so that's why I do what I do.
Do you notice a lot of them have a camaraderie behind the scenes? Because all we ever see is the rivalry. And especially, I know in the actual boxing world, they like to hype up the rivalry and they do so much just to do it. I'm not super familiar with the MMA sport. Is it kind of the same way? Or do you notice a lot of them are actually friends behind the scenes?
So it's weird because now it's now we're talking you're the boxing one and I'm the MMA one here. But I would say at times there's plenty of bad blood. There's plenty of heat. There's plenty of rivalry. There's also plenty of promotion where you might push that line just a little bit further to sell more tickets, to get more people to buy pay-per-views. I would say majority of the time you're going to see these fighters. And what I love about the sport, the true thing I think I love the most about the sport is that you'll see fighters embrace afterwards. We just had it this past weekend with UFC 263. Israel Adesanya is the middleweight champion. He fought Marvin Vettori, who was looking to become the first ever Italian-born champion in the UFC. They had fought a few years ago. Adesanya won. Marvin's gotten better, to his credit, but there was a lot of heat, a lot of F-bombs, a lot of just bad blood coming into it. And even after the fight, you know, Marvin was like, I won that fight. And he didn't. He lost all 5 rounds. And Adesanya told him, like, no, you didn't. But, like, props. Like, you're tough. You know, and, like, you would think, like, the bad blood would carry over. And Israel could have been a guy who's been like, you didn't win. And he could have kept it going. But he just said, like, no, you didn't win. And, like, props to you and good fight. You know, and that's what I think I love. Another side I love of the sport so much is, you know, the biggest feud I think of recent memory has been, you know, Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz, who also fought last weekend. And talk about 2 guys who had multiple altercations in their press conferences. And then when blood is pouring down them both at the end of their second fight, they just embraced. And it's one of, like, the most beautiful moments since I've been covering the sport, because you're like, I thought these guys hated each other. But after you go 25 minutes in the cage with someone, if you can't put them out, if you don't knock them out, usually I'll say this: if it goes the distance, you'll see a lot more embrace it. Sometimes you'll see a fighter get knocked out and they kind of taunt, but I think sometimes you also see a fighter get a finish, whether it be submission or knockout, and they want to make sure that the other person, no matter how bad the beef was, they want to make sure they're okay.
Do any of these guys hang out, like, behind the scenes, though? Are they drinking beers on a Saturday night? Are they any type of friends like this, or do they really keep it? And that's something I don't know. I would love to dive in that world.
Yeah, so actually it just happened. Another example from this past weekend, there was 2 guys in the light heavyweight division, Jamal Hill, Paul Craig. A lot of bad blood. Like, they had a hotel altercation. Jamal Hill was accusing Paul Craig's fans of being racist and saying there was a lot of nasty DMs being sent his way. And, you know, Jamal Hill was saying, like, I'm going to knock you out. Well, Paul Craig is a submission artist, and he said right in the pre-fight introduction, like, I'm going to test his jiu-jitsu. And it was like 2 minutes in, he broke Jamal's arm. It was a very bad display of officiating by the referee, because you could see clearly his arm was flopping just like a dead piece of, like, leaf. And once they got it all back together, his arm, and I mean, they called the fight after, not due to the submission, but due to, like, a TKO, it was like due to strikes. So the referee completely misses the broken arm here, or dislocated arm, whatever it was. Once Jamal Hill got medically, like, put back together after the fight, he actually shared a post, I think Sunday or Monday, of him and Paul Craig drinking and, like, getting, like, turned up, is how he said it. He said they got absolutely wild together. And it's just one of those things you don't hear about enough. But
I know, I love that. That's awesome.
No, yeah, and I'll say this: it happens a lot with, like, the older fighters, because the older fighters, like, man, we just do this because we love it. I got nothing against you. You got nothing against me. Let's go have a drink. You do see it a lot with older fighters, but to their credit, like, they've kind of laid their foundation. These younger fighters, you don't know who you can be friends with. You know, when these younger fighters get into the sport, they're not making a lot of money, so they got to stay active. They got to stay looking out for themselves, and I credit them for that. But you definitely see it. It's just not heard about enough.
So right now, where is the action at? Where's the best place to live when you're in this?
Well, definitely Vegas. I moved before COVID. I moved right outside New York City into New Jersey because I had gotten a job with SiriusXM for their fight channel, and, like, that was incredible. Best time of my life.
Wow.
Yeah, unfortunately, due to COVID and, you know, having just my mom, you know, living in Chicago by herself, I wasn't comfortable with, like, pretty much life anymore. So I was like, I'm going to come home.
So you left the job?
I did. Yeah. It wasn't. And I'll say this, like, you know, I was kind of thinking about this all day before I came on here with you, if I wanted to bring this up or not, but I've talked about it enough. I think that I think I'm now comfortable, you know, speaking about it on camera. It's almost been a year. But outside of my mom, I lost my best friend to an overdose, you know, in August, and just kind of felt myself unraveling a lot. That's why on my social media, I do share stuff a lot that talks about anxiety and depression and mental health awareness. I know May is Mental Health Awareness Month. I think it should be every single month.
Well, this month is PTSD Awareness Month.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. So, I mean, the conversation should never stop. I mean, that's the biggest thing for me. So just never knowing because we were, what, 6 months into COVID when that happened, or 5 months into COVID when that happened. And, you know, I had some eerie feelings walking through New Jersey and New York City, and just Times Square was like just empty, like it was deserted because everything was shut down. And that left a weird feeling in me. And then losing my best friend and then worrying about my mom, like that really was like, all right, I'm gonna come home. I can get another job one day when I'm doing better myself. I gotta look out for people, because, you know, I don't want to ever hold the blame for, you know, the loss of someone else. But I do wonder, you know, to this day, like, what would happen if I never left? You know, would my friend have still been here? But it was all those things mixed together that I was like, it's best for me to come home.
It's a lot. Wow.
Yeah. Sorry to throw that out there.
Oh, no, that's fine. I mean, I suffer from PTSD, so I'm very active in the whole PTSD awareness month. So anytime people want to share stuff like that, I totally understanding. I think that's really commendable, because I don't know if I could actually leave a job. It's almost actually more commendable that you left that, knowing all that and making those choices, than if you had stayed. I think staying actually would have probably been the easier thing to do.
It absolutely would have been. And I think I still hear from, you know, good friends and mentors who are like, man, like, where would you be right now? Like, if you didn't leave? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. But also, where would my life have been if I never took the job in the first place? Because the job wasn't guaranteed. I've done this twice in my life, where I've moved to the East Coast hoping for a job. The first time was the one I told you about when I moved right outside the Philly area. That one didn't come through. This time I interviewed for the job multiple times over the phone, and was just sitting at the bar with a couple friends. And I go, if you had multiple phone interviews with a job, would you feel very confident? And they were like, yeah. I was like, all right, guys, I'm moving to Jersey next week. And they're like, what? They're like, no. Like, we've had a couple drinks. Like, you're overthinking this. Like, and literally went home that night, started packing everything up, had to talk with my mom. I said, hey, if it doesn't work out, I'll be back. But I was offered the job, you know, shortly into my time out there, and it was a great run. And, you know, I think, again, I don't want to be cliche that everything happens for a reason, but it was an incredible learning experience. I met a lot of great people, made a lot of great connections.
What are some of the things you learned working with Sirius XM? Tell us a little bit about, and then now you moved from podcast style to radio style. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I learned it's okay to take a step back. Because that was the biggest thing for me, because I was coming in as a guy who had hosted in radio and internet radio, but also done a podcast. Like, I've interviewed the woman who was at the time my boss at SiriusXM. She had been on my show a couple years prior, multiple times. It was very weird. You know, it's like, oh, remember I interviewed you and now I work for you? Like, it was very weird, but I had to learn, just say I got humbled very quickly. Because a podcast, as you know, you kind of do on your time, talk to who you want. But in radio, it's all about who everyone wants to hear from. And that's not to say that I don't reach out to people that I think everyone in the combat sports world wants to hear from. I just don't have the easy access to them. But I also wasn't coming in as a host. I was coming in as a producer, an associate producer at that. So
for SiriusXM?
I'm sorry? Yes.
For the SiriusXM.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had to humble myself and say, hey, Mr. Podcast Host, you can do that on your own time. You can't come into these studios thinking that one day you're going to be sitting in that chair. You got to baby steps, crawl before you walk. And I didn't have that kind of humbling moment in this business for a while, because I've kind of done my own thing. I've always kind of just made it for myself. I've created my own path. But to not learn, because I've worked in radio stations before, but the last time I worked at one was 6 years ago. So I had to learn getting back into running a board, answering phones, having a pulse of the listeners. But most importantly, I had to learn to listen to every single second of the show that I was working on and understand I was not the most important person in the room. Not that I've ever thought that, but I used to be like, oh, you're coming on my show. We have a good rapport. We'll have a great conversation. For me, it's just, no. You have one job. This is what your job role is. Sit there, do that, perfect that, craft that and perfect it. Then maybe you can become a producer. And then maybe being a producer leads to hosting somewhere else one day. But those were like the big things I had to learn. And really just a lot of humbleness was like the biggest thing.
Was it hard not to tell some of the hosts, like, why didn't you ask this or why didn't you navigate?
No, I would never do that. But what I definitely saw myself doing a lot is because I am ridiculously active on Twitter. I suck at Instagram. That's a personal like battle I have with myself because
I suck at Twitter, so there we go.
Yeah, I hate sharing this mug on Instagram. So I like literally like all my Instagram stuff is like everyone I interview or just podcast related stuff. I try to keep my face out of it as much as possible. But I'm super active on like Facebook and Twitter. And I would catch myself a lot like browsing Twitter for like the next big news or a tweet or a fighter calling out another fighter. And I would try to put it in. So like during commercial break, hey, did you hear this? And it's like, okay. You don't have to feed us every single piece of information that you see, but if you got something good, we'll even bring you on air to talk about it. So, I found that, and the biggest thing I think I had to do was I had to become comfortable with myself because these hosts, and I could name them all, but two that really helped me out, three that really helped me out, I'll say, are Ryan McKinnon out in Vegas, Luke Thomas, who works for Showtime, and Jimmy Smith, who does like WWE. He's also at Sirius. Those three allowed me to basically see like it's okay to have a voice. You don't have to bark to be heard. So they would bring me in if we were having a conversation during commercial break, and they're like, hold this. We'll talk about this on air because now maybe people want to hear this. And it got me to open up a little bit about myself because I will still say to this day, I think I'm so worried about public perception that I don't really show any of my personal life on social media. So I still struggle with that, but they definitely would give me a platform. But I had to learn, like, they didn't need to hear about every single thing that was posted on social media.
Right. So Mike, you just have done so much and you're doing so much. What's kind of the end game? Like if you could have, what would be like your dream, seeing how your career is going
So usually I only say this when I'm out because I really hate like talking myself up, but eventually 50-something-year-old Joe Rogan will either stop doing this podcast or someone else is going to come along and wanting to do something exactly like that. I think the end game for me is to be anywhere that allows me to have an open platform where I'm not either censored or controlled by others. And obviously make enough money to start a family one day and move to where I want to move and live the best possible life that I can make for myself. I think that's the easiest way that I can say it without me saying, oh, I want to do what Joe Rogan does. But that's essentially what I want to do. I don't want to just stick in this world of combat sports. It's why I reached out to you, because I don't want to just talk to people. I have a like hidden like love of stand-up comedy. Like I love it. I have a passion for being in the entertainment world, but I don't even know where to begin. Like I'm such a like movie and TV person. I don't know where to start with that. Like you know what I mean? And comedy, same thing. Like before COVID hit, I was going to $5 AMC Tuesdays for the movie, like all new movies that would come out. And like on the weekends, I try to go to as many comedy shows as possible, while also managing, going to fights, interviewing fighters. Like, so the end game for me is I want to be able to talk to anyone and everyone who interests me on a platform that I'm not censored or controlled, and I can make a good living. Like, that's really it.
So it would have to stay kind of podcast style because you can't be like, Kelly and Ryan Seacrest. You can't do that because then that would be too censored. So you'd have to go to cable or always podcast, right?
Right. Yeah. So I think podcast is probably the answer for me because eventually I'd like my own studio. Right. I'd like to be big enough where people travel in to wherever my studio may be. Like this is all basically just Joe Rogan 101. He has his own studio. It's beautiful. Like everyone comes in, actors, comedians, because obviously he has his comedy life. Marines have come in, like people who have served our country have come in. There's been so many things or so many different walks of life that he's interviewed. And most of the time people just let their guard down. To say that the same guy can talk to Dave Chappelle, Kevin Hart, Army or a veteran of our, military, and a UFC fighter, like that's pretty amazing to me. That's actually, that motivates me.
And right now, your show really just focuses mainly like on MMA. Those. Have you ever interviewed a comedian, or you can't really do that with your?
So I interviewed one. I've wanted to do more. That I've kind of dabbled in introducing myself to some of them, but again, I don't know. And this is where I think I pull all this information or this motivation from Joe Rogan. I don't want to come on my podcast and offer out an invite to someone, and I don't know what the hell they're talking about or what the hell that they do. So I don't want to act like I can sit, because I can talk to an MMA fighter for 2 hours.
Right.
I don't know if I can talk to a stand-up comic for 2 hours.
They're actually kind of hard to interview, honestly.
Yeah, and I wouldn't know when they're making a joke and when they're being serious. So, like that's the thing for me. Eventually, like I want to branch out and grow into not just comedy, but again, actors on TV, actors in movies. Like I want to do all of that stuff. That's something that I really hope to. I don't know if it starts, in 2021. I would love it to. But after everything I spoke about, that it kind of happened with me in this move back to Chicago. I took 6 months of podcasting off, and I was going through, just trying to get myself together after everything. And so I'm now just slowly getting back into the swing of things in the MMA world. Once I feel I'm picking up some steam in there. So other thing I don't want to do is I don't want to waste anyone's time. And I'm sure you'll say it. I've heard plenty of people say it. Don't read the comments. Don't look at the views, right? Like that's the biggest thing. And I'll be like, I can't believe I took 45 minutes of this person's time and we got 300 views. Like what? Like that's it? Like come on. Like they've got thousands of people following them and we only got. But then like, my friends will flip it on me and be like, they still gave you 45 minutes of their time and it's not the first time they've done it. So once I stop doing that, I think I'll start branching out to trying to reach out to, athletes in other sports and other media members and other people in like entertainment and television and movies and comedy, all stuff I really truly want to do.
So where can we watch this? And is it bi-weekly or is it once a week?
I wish I had a consistent schedule. I can say that.
Well, you don't have a certain day that it's on?
No.
Okay.
Nope. Yeah.
And how do we subscribe? We're going to subscribe right now to make those ratings go.
So, well, thank you. So it's just Mike Pendleton on YouTube. That's my YouTube channel.
Okay.
I'll say this. I try to do at least one episode a week. But
okay, so you are weekly. I thought so.
Yeah, I try. The hardest thing is because I don't have, the revenue coming in from that. I do have like another job that I have to do. And
I think every podcaster does.
Right. Right. So it's just time management. And again, it comes along with, why I came back and trying to put the puzzle pieces back together and coming out with a consistent schedule and a consistent, way of time management and how to have that personal.
Wait, Mike. So it's Mike Pendleton. What? There's like some equestrian that keeps coming up.
It's just Mike Pendleton. That's it on YouTube.
Why is there like an equestrian coming up? I swear that's like. Send me the link. We're gonna make sure we get this out.
Yeah, I will send you the link for sure. That's so weird.
I'm like, there's an equestrian that keeps coming up. I want to watch this. Who's the next person you're interviewing? Do you have one set up?
Well, my last three, I'll say this, and then not to kind of pick favorites here, but my last three really meant a lot to me. Kelly Murphy's someone who pretty much trained me at SiriusXM, and you kind of mentioned. Can't believe you would leave like the dream job. Like that's what SiriusXM was, but I had to focus on the better, for myself and my health. And Kelly wasn't just like, oh, all right, it was great working with you. Bye. Like,
right.
She comes on the podcast still. We've been talking about doing one together to preview every month's pay-per-view for the UFC. So her and I talked like an hour and 45 minutes. So that was special. Misha Tate was one of the most popular fighters of all time. Former UFC bantamweight champion. She was on a couple weeks ago, and that was truly like a career bucket list interview for me. And just so people understand this, like, and I feel like some people were curious about this. I worked with Misha at SiriusXM, but when I talked about being humbled by that job, I never walked in there once trying to interview the people I worked for. Like, I was never like, hey, I'm here to work for you today, but when you're free, can you come on my show? I was like, if I ever leave this job, I'll ask them to come on. And that's what I did. You know, I waited until
This is interesting. I want to catch up on these. This is really
and
good.
then Ariel Helwani is the other one. It's kind of just, he's been in the news recently. He's leaving ESPN. So, you know, we didn't even touch on that. And I really mentioned those three because I feel like I have some type of great relationship with them, even though Misha, that was my first time talking to her, you know, in an
outside of that.
Yeah, in an interview style. And just the way she kind of talked about everything. Like, again, if I'll say this, if you're looking for technical breakdowns of fights and fighters, don't come on my channel. Like, please don't check me out. If you want to know why Misha Tate is coming back after 5 years of being retired from the sport, after having 2 kids, if you want to know why she's coming back and fighting in July, come on
that fascinates me, and I will watch that.
Yeah, like that's the type of interviewing that I do. I don't care about, I do care about what's going on in the gym. I do care about where you've improved as a fighter, because the fans want to know where you've improved as a fighter.
Right.
But at the end of the day, what got me into this business
were the stories.
And again, it sounds like I'm writing his name a lot, but you know, and there's plenty of people who interview the way Joe Rogan does. But I'm saying, for someone who keeps me every single day opening my Spotify app, you know, today was my day off. So that's why I was like, oh, we can do this interview whenever you want today. But like during my morning, I couldn't find a movie or anything I wanted to watch. So I just threw up an episode of Rogan, airplayed it on my TV. And it's like 2.5 hours gone, just like that. You know?
Mike, thank you so much for coming on my show. We're going to follow you on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and YouTube. If I find.
I will send you the link. I can't thank you enough for having me on here. It's very rare that like I get asked to do any interviews. I'm usually the one hosting the interviews, but no, it's nice, and credit to you and all that you do, and anyone who follows me, please follow Sparkle. Like, this is amazing. I'll say this as a compliment to you. It was very easy for me to open up about things I was wondering if I was going to open up about. So that's props to you as a person, as a host, and just the way you kind of carry the show. Like, it's very easygoing, laid back, and you're one of those people, you know, I kind of strive to be in this media world, because just like the walls just immediately came down.
Thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Welcome to Everything Sparkle. Kenny, I'm finally glad to have you in the flesh. Well, virtually.
Yes. I know it's been a long time coming.
So, Kenny, tell us about what you do, which is a lot.
I do a lot. Yeah. Well, first and foremost, obviously, I'm a father. So that's my number one job, and everything else I do is because of that. But to make an income, I own a marketing company. So I do social media, PR stuff, podcasts, basically everything that has anything to do with marketing is what I do.
it's a lot because we're like older. I'll throw me in the category, and things keep changing. I mean, there wasn't even Instagram back in the day. I mean, you would probably remember the MySpace days. So
what was our friend that everybody had?
Tom.
Yeah, I wonder what he's doing right now.
So how hard is it to kind of keep up with the trends and be relevant, know what's happening, and make sure that your clients are all up to date and everybody's relevant?
Well, it's as hard as anything. You adapt to that. It kind of the hardness out of it. So yeah, it's very time consuming to learn these things, and then frustrating to learn how Facebook works, have them change it, then learn, have them change it again. It's always changing, but you kind of get used to it, and you get less frustrated every time it changes because you just know it's something I have to do. So if I have to do it, I'm not going to complain. I'm just going to spend more time on it.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, actually. I'll use this show as an example. Like, we were doing the Facebook watch parties, and that was going great. And then when they took that feature out, I did notice, definitely a dive in ratings as far as that, because a lot of people are just busy. They don't know. So when they got invited, they knew that we were on. This was a good time to watch. So how do you navigate that? Like, if I was your client, what would you tell me when I come to you crying that no one's watching my show anymore?
Yeah. Well, we just find other avenues. The watch parties were good because you had more time. I guess they changed it so now people go live, which is just almost as good. But I guess I would move their platform.
We were doing watch parties while we were live.
Oh,
yeah. So that really brought it in.
Well, and they never gave a good explanation of why they got rid of it. Like what's a good reason for because a lot of people would do it. So it had to be something. But for my client, I would just look at what we were gaining from that strategy and different outlets that might produce something close to it. Like Periscope and different things that are always changing.
I heard Periscope was no more. Is that true?
No. So now Clubhouse would be, I guess, the one.
What's that? What's Clubhouse? I've never heard of that.
Yeah, Clubhouse is basically like it's a social platform, but it's video based, and you get in like groups and you guys talk through videos. And I'm not as familiar with it as I should be, but I always get invites from friends, and I can send you kind of some more information on it. But it's just one of those things, when all this stuff was happening with Facebook and then Parler getting shut down,
right?
They started looking for ways to not kind of be so part of the mainstream. So they started some of these other sites that maybe couldn't control you as well as maybe YouTube or Facebook, all the big ones. They have a lot of say over your freedom of speech and what you put out there. And so there are a lot of more independent sites popping up, and that's kind of how this one is.
So when people hire you for the marketing services, you try to tell them to give you time to really help them grow. Because I think a lot of people too, they go into them like, well, I want this right away. And I know it's a process. How do you explain that to them and get them going with that?
Well, they all want, and the best thing they'll say is, hey, if you can bring me in $500,000, I'll pay you $200,000. And it's like, okay, well, sign me up for that. Like, I bottle that up and sell it for more. Creating a realistic expectation in the beginning is the best way to do it. And really that expectation is going to come around their budget, always going to be their budget and what time they're willing to put in themselves and what resources they have. So basically we're going to need a pile of gold and resources to get this done. How much of that gold, how much of those resources do you have? And then that will determine, what we can really kind of hope to gain. But really we try to track it and always make sure that we're spending our money in the best way. But you've probably heard, I know half my marketing is working, I just don't know which half. So you're always trying new things, you're always switching it up. And so, yeah, seems like you do pretty good at that. You've done like since I first started watching you, you're very good at growing and adapting and doing those things. So I should be asking questions. Yeah, I should be asking you.
But to tell us some of the companies or like shows, anything that we know that you kind of helped grow.
Well, like Cherry Avenue Auction here in Fresno, I manage their social. Yeah, so I manage their social. So every time you see a post, go out. Anytime you ask a question, anytime you harass them, that's me. So they're here. I have a lot of attorneys like Saul Law Group here. Man, a lot of my clients are in Canada and the UK, which is cool. I like the UK because the conversion rate, if they pay $300, it comes out to $400. And
how do you get them? How did they find out about you?
Well, there's freelance sites like Upwork or like People Per Hour, and so they're basically sites where there's business owners like you and I that need to fill a lead and need to find somebody to fill a lead, and they don't necessarily have to be local. So say I want somebody to create a logo. Okay, I can go here locally and have it created for $1,000, or I can pay somebody in India $150, which would be a lot for them, and they would do just as good at work. You know what I mean? So that person in India would put a profile on something like Upwork, and then the business owner would say, hey, I would like this done, and then it would notify that person. And so I've gotten a lot of business from that. Michigan, I mean, anywhere that's outside of Fresno, it's all come from that. Or Sacramento and Fresno, but yeah.
That's really fascinating. That's cool. So is there any international stuff that we would know about that you can mention?
There's a place called A Buck or Two. It's in Canada. It's like Dollar Tree. There's like 100 locations. So they're one, and then the rest, two are restaurants. One's one of those new, those office shares where basically you just kind of like you all share an office, and there's one of those.
Right.
Yeah, it's one of those. An elderly center. I had a health coach. It just kind of varies, really.
Do you travel a lot then?
No, not at all. This is how I meet with them. You know what I mean? I wish I traveled more. Yeah.
Well, I know some PR people are travel a lot.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how much longer that's going to be happening, just because we have with COVID, everybody's gotten so used to Zoom. It's like, I can do all my meetings and still be face to face. I can show you my screen. I mean, we can basically do every interaction. The only thing we lose is that human touch, which to where if you have a client, like some of my clients in Canada I've had for like 6 years, I've been meaning to go see them, and I should, and as a business person, I should go see them and meet them. But it's worked okay without it, so I guess finding that happy medium.
So you never kind of connect them in person? Because wouldn't it kind of be good to kind of go there and know what you're dealing with? Because here it's like when you say you work with the cherry auction, everybody locally knows what that is, Right. But when you're dealing with stuff out there that you don't even know, do you ever feel like you need to go out there to get a feel of the concept of how you can really, or not really? It's not time to go.
It would absolutely help. I guess before it was just like Canada. I looked all into it, and it's like spending $4,000 to go do it, which is a great investment because you're meeting your clients. But I just kind of kept putting it off, and then with the COVID thing, obviously we couldn't. And then now I don't even know if we can go to Canada right now. Anyways, I think the borders closed to us because of whatever. But like my clients in Sacramento, I go visit them. But they're sushi businesses, so I go and I drink sake and have sushi. So that's good. You know what I mean? Like that's a good incentive. And it's only a 3-hour drive. So, but you're right. Like I am kind of sacrificing that human connection because, if you go and you meet with them and you create that rapport, like you're not going to lose them as a client unless you really mess up. You're going to have them forever. I've been very fortunate to have that rapport with my clients without that. And I think a lot of it's been because they don't really understand marketing. They like me as a person. We get along very well. They like being able to just focus on their business and then calling me or emailing me whenever there's a problem. They like the fact that I take care of it right away. So as long as I do that consistently, I think they feel like they've already met me.
So you never do where you throw events for people then to bring their business out there. You don't do that side of the marketing then.
The Sacramento ones I do. Like I'll go down there for their anniversaries and stuff. They have a sake tasting event July 12th, and I'll be there for that. So then, yeah, but Canada, it's like, this client pays me $300 a month. It's going to take me 3 years to pay just to go out there for that one event. So what they'll do is they'll have local people actually out at the event.
Okay.
I'll create all the artwork that they need. I'll create everything they need. If they're going to have submission forms or people doing a survey, I can create anything that they need. Just I can't be out there. I can't do something live. You know what I mean? So they'll have one of their employees do a live event.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we just kind of make the best of what we got, I guess.
So what's the lowest budget you can work with? You mentioned like 300. So if someone wanted to do a startup or someone wanted you, I wanted to help you to help me with like what I got going on, what's the lowest amount that you take monthly?
Well, it's so hard to not shoot in your foot and answer that question at the same time. You know what I mean? Because it goes back to that expectations. But I'll just tell you the lowest budget I work with right now is 150. So yeah, or actually 120. So I have someone who pays 120, but I don't spend as So like,
yeah, you can't spend that much time. So you kind of just do a little bit of artwork or a little bit of advice, or
I'll even do the time and I'll take out the Facebook advertising. You know what I mean? So like, say I charge you $150, I'm going to give 30 of that to Facebook, and then I'm going to pay for like reporting software. So at the end of the day, we're going to get like $75 to make the post. Well, if you just want the post made, okay, we'll make them for $75, but then we're not going to advertise on Facebook. We're not going to do any of the extra stuff, but we'll still make it to where you don't have to worry about posting to your page. You know what I mean?
so that all works. All the getting like advertising on Facebook and advertising on all those little things. You encourage all that. You're saying that's like a good strategy for people that are up and coming, and it's not a waste.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, what I do is I'll just do $1, $2, $3 a day, and you create what's called like an ad like campaign. So the whole objective is to get new followers to your page, so that you can obviously reach them for free later based off the algorithm and so forth. So I'll do $2 a day, so that's $60. You pay it, you might get 20 new likes or something like that, or 30 likes, depending. Some of my restaurants will get 100 likes. You would probably get 1,000 likes because it's all what people like. You know what I mean? So my attorney, people aren't, they like attorneys, but really, when do you like really look for an attorney unless you're in trouble or so it differs for each business. But I guess what I'm saying is like, don't go throw a whole bunch of money at Facebook. Just kind of test the waters a little bit, especially if you're going to be doing different things. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. So again, that all kind of is determined by the budget.
Wow. So what are some other sites? You mentioned some sites. What are some other things that we should look out for that are up and coming, or that as business owners we should be on?
Social. Yeah. I know Parlier is a big one, just because they're back and they're a little bit more on the free speech side. Just like I said, the Clubhouse. Really, it's just so, from COVID, we really don't know what's going to happen. There's no buzz around anything like there used to be. You know what I mean? Like, if Facebook used to say, hey, we have this coming, and it would create excitement, and we can kind of get to learn it, or Periscope when it came. And now it seems like everything that's coming is kind of almost making it worse in a standpoint. It's all restrictions coming as opposed to positive.
Right. So how do we get around that? How do we get ourselves out there without?
We just blow up Facebook and then start around and then just get everybody there. The problem with these things is that once something gets that powerful and it can control things to that nature, we become kind of, a puppet. And then the people that we want to see it might not be able to see it because of those reasons, so we just kind of keep doing what we're doing until something else comes along. A lot of my clients are trying to move from Facebook. A lot of them are. It's just because of this whole political season. The people that are paying attention, they don't like the fact that they're not able to see certain articles that they should be seeing. So it's kind of created that. And that's why I've really shifted mine, and I still do mostly what I do is social media management, but I try to have my team do that. What I do is, so we have, Newcast Media is my company, but we have, but Travis Huff and I have I Love Podcast. So it's ILUV Podcast. And basically what we do is we put people that want to be on podcasts in touch with the right podcast, like I told you with that lady. And then we also have people on our team that can kind of help you get better at doing podcasts, can teach you how to be a better interviewee.
Really?
A lot of different things. So we're basically,
so there's coaching involved in this.
Yeah. We have a coach, and we're working on more. We have a network of the actual hosts like you, and we have a lot of leads coming in for people that want to be on shows. And we're doing Google advertising. So like I had 2 meetings today with people that want to be on shows, and some of them are just clicking because they're interested, and some of them are really serious. So it's really starting to gain traction. And the reason I like it is because I love this long form. Like I said earlier, like I love being able to, listen to Tim Ferriss talk to somebody for an hour and a half, or Joe Rogan for 3 hours, and really kind of hit their brain and talk about whatever without, censors coming in and saying, don't talk about this, producers saying, let's stay away from that. You know what I mean? Like it's authentic.
Do you see a lot of growth in that when you set people up on podcasts that their businesses are really growing, or is it just exposure to their brand? Do you actually see it becoming monetary for some of your clients?
Well, I do. And the reason why is because there's two aspects to it, like most marketing. There's that branding standpoint, you know what I mean? You're getting your name out there, you're branding. So you're creating something that, sits in the mind of somebody else. I bought so many different things from Tim Ferriss and Joe Rogan podcast, you know what I mean? Like I have so many different things in my house, and it's because I trust them, and I've gotten things from Tim Ferriss's podcast. I started listening to him about a year and a half ago, and I bought things from his third podcast 5 years ago. So the longevity of these things, if you pay Facebook to put an ad, I'm not going to see the ad from 5 years from now. But if you go on a podcast, if you go on a Sparkle show and she's good, and then in 4 years she has 10 million subscribers, all her shows are still going to be there. So all those subscribers are going to have now access to what you had originally put out there as content from a branding standpoint, as an interviewee. So it's really hard to gauge. It's really hard to know down the road how much it is. You can't just look at, hey, I did a podcast and next month I did this much more business, because it's much more than that,
Well, yeah, but I mean, for example, with my personal training, I had initially gone on, that's how I got started in this business. I used to go on other podcasts to promote the training, and I never got one person saying, hey, I saw you on this show. Can you train me?
Well, what was your call?
You would know that if someone says, hey, I saw you on that show, I want to hire you. You know what I mean? You kind of would know.
Well, they won't tell you unless you had a call to action.
Well, I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm saying it didn't work for me. People have gotten actually business from being on my show. I didn't get on business from being on other people's shows.
You got to get a cut of that, right? 10%? Isn't that what it is?
That's what I thought. I thought you're getting more money off my show than I am. But
I know that. But no, I guess what I'm saying is, like, people could have hired you because they had seen you and maybe never even told you that they saw you.
But
so
I asked them, we talk. No one's going to be like, or they would at least say, I saw you on a show. I don't remember what it is. They're, it's a small, intimate, I'm sure some of your businesses are small, intimate where you talk.
Right, absolutely. And so do you know what Peachwood Medical Center is?
Yeah.
Okay, so the way I started 12 years ago is we put screens in all the waiting rooms. So there's flat screens, 42-inch flat screens, anywhere you go in the facility when you're sitting waiting for your doctor. So I put together all the content for those screens and all the advertising for those screens.
Nice. Okay.
And so I've been doing that for 13 years. And so what I found, obviously, by testing is that the call to action is a big thing. And that's a great way to gauge. So when you were doing that, if you had a call to action and you could say, okay, I saw 10 people say this code, or, get your first visit free. That's really kind of the only way to gauge if they're coming in off of that. You know what I mean? Unless they come in and say, hey, I saw you on this, or hey, I saw you on that. So really the call to action is very important. Just something that entices them to, I've been wanting to work out forever. Oh, she's going to give me 3 free sessions. Okay, then I don't really have an excuse anymore. You know what I mean? So different things like that, getting creative, which you do. I mean, you're pretty creative with that stuff now. But
yeah, I was just saying that was just an example of how I've seen different things. But like I said, I've seen people get stuff off of it, so I think that's great. And it's so good that you give like classes and coaching, because a lot of people need that. They'll have one thing and they know how to do something so well in their business, and they don't know everything else. And it's really good that you fill in the blanks for them.
Right. Well, we try to. Yeah, we try to. And YouTube. I mean, these obviously, I just lump your show into podcasts when I say this. So I mean, when I say podcast, it's YouTube shows. It's any kind of long form interviews like this, Right. And that's I feel like those are great ways to really get to know somebody. You know what I mean? If I can see a 30-second ad of you working out, or I can watch you for 20 minutes explain, why you work out and where the passion comes from and how it's changed your life. And so, I mean, things that really I want, and she gets that from working out. Well, maybe I should try working out. Not, oh, hey, she's good. She's in good shape from working out. Well, I would obviously have to work hard for 2 years to get that. So I'm not going to do it. It's longer. I love the longer form.
Well, this is cool. So we can call you guys are looking for new clients. So we can call you at any time and say, hey, we want some.
Yeah, you're on our network. So you're on a, if you have, you're going to be the ones that we provide as a resource to are clients that have, fit your genre, your audience. And if you ever have somebody that you like, we're all about networking. You're very good at that. So that's how we met. You do a great job of that. And so I'm looking forward to definitely working together in the future on some of those.
And so anybody can call you right now that's like watching. They could be like, hey, so it's Newcastle Media, right?
Newcastle, just cast, like not the beer, but just like Newcastle.
Yeah. I'm sorry, did I say it all wrong? Newcastle Media.
I called you Sparky Spark the first time I ever talked to you or something like that. I don't know. I couldn't. And you're like, it's Sparkle.
So Newcast Media, you're the only Newcast Media in town. So it's just, we look you up. So you're willing to take on new clientele of any kind, any business, any startup. Everyone can go to you right now.
The great thing about me is that I'm doing well enough to where I don't have to just take on new clients. So what I'm saying is that anybody can come to me, and if I'm not the right fit for them, or I know somebody that's better for them, or I have a better resource,
okay,
that way, you know what I mean? So yes, I do take everybody, but I could just be telling you someone that I think would be a great fit for your needs if I'm not, you know what I mean?
That's great. And then because you said you kind of coach people on how to be good at interviewing and stuff. Do you guys ever do where you kind of talk to all of your clients at once on like a Zoom call or something and meet up and talk about different things or different ideas or what's going on, or not really?
No, but that's a great idea, because I pictured like the beginning of the Brady Bunch, and that's like all kind of just looking down at each other and talking, you know what I mean? So no, we don't. Like the guy, because I don't, dude, it's one of our partners, but he takes more of the one-on-one approach, you know what I mean? Because everybody's different. But I think it would be fun to every 3 months have all the clients get together and say what's worked for them in interviews, say what didn't work for them, really share share the knowledge. I think that's
right.
Write that down. Yeah. All right. 100%.
Oh, that's so funny. And then what about like being with the Chamber of Commerce? Is that a good thing to do? Is that something that you encourage your clients to do? Is it not, you don't really mess with that?
I did it in the beginning. I was in the Clovis one, I was in the Fresno one. I ended up just kind of piling up plaques saying welcome to the Chamber. And so that's really kind of all I got out of it. But really it could have been my lack of networking skills at the time, because they have events and stuff, but
right.
It's just kind of the same people walking around saying, so I don't know. I think it's good for some, and I think it's maybe unnecessary for others. I don't think it'll hurt anybody. But I
didn't know if you got your clients into that and then created the events with them. I mean, I never did that either with them, but I've gone to a lot of events where the Chamber is like really pushing you and pushing that brand. So, and since you said you connect people, I didn't know if you were connecting people to people within the Chamber and if it's works.
Well, I used to about 6 years ago. I was heavy. I would go to all because they would have this big kind of trade show at the Veterans Building.
Right.
So, but then it would just be like Cool Hand Luke's and a bunch of places. So I'd go in networking, but I think at that point, no, it was probably about 8 to 9 years ago. I think at that point, it was more because I had done real estate in the past and loans. It was more just kind of like, how can I get a lead? How can I get a lead? How can me? How can I find new business? So I think now if I went out, it would be more, how can I help people even for free? So I think if I took the approach that I would have now, I would be a lot more successful than going in there saying, what can I get out of this? What can I get out of this?
Right. And then I heard that some people like they'll actually like create their own events. Like I know they do a lot of golfing events so that the business will actually create within their own, and that's kind of their draw to get different businesses in there. So I just wondered if that was part of the marketing strategies that your firm does.
Yeah, well, we've done it in the past, and really we just kind of work together a strategy with the owner. And with events, it's you're going to have a table, but it's like, what's going to be, again, the call to action. You know what I mean? Like what's going to make me go to your table at a place with 1,000 tables? And then what's going to make me put my information in that thing, knowing that you're going to, they do a trip to Hawaii or whatever. So
right.
Depending on the client, we just find out exactly what they're trying to do, and then what their feel is, what their style is, because we don't want to do that cookie cutter one style fits all. You don't want the sparkle booth to be like the old lady grandma cookies booth. You know what I mean? So
right,
it's really finding out their flavor, their feel, their message, and then working with our creative team to come up with something that they fall in love with.
Yeah, this is good. No, I think everybody needs at some point to pick your brain.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Don't pick it too far because you're gonna find some stuff you don't want to see.
So Facebook, Instagram, is it just, do you guys have one for the business or we just follow you?
Yeah, you can follow me or the business, and I don't know if you want me to if you say it all right now or just send it to you. And I don't know. I've never done this.
I'm just saying for the viewers to follow. What do you want the viewers to follow? I follow you personally. I didn't know if you wanted the viewers to follow the Newcast. So there's a Newcast one. Okay.
Yeah. So either way, it's Newcast Media. So it's Newcast Media on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and then me. It's just Kenny Jordan. It might be a variation. I think YouTube or Instagram. It's I am Payne Jordan or whatever. I can't keep track of all of them, but yeah, just Newcast Media, and that'll all lead to both of us.
So Newcast Media, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for being on my show, Kenny.
Thank you for having me, and let's do it again sometime.
For sure.
All right.
Felt right in the moment, felt right in the summertime. It felt right drinking cherry wine with you. Just wanted to own it, just wanted to take the time, learn all the things that I could about you. Now it's such a mess here, oh we are just stressed here. Used to be so easy with you. Now I must confess here, oh I must confess dear, don't think I'm in love with you. Winter is coming and I don't know what to do, and there's no more use in running, no more running to you. And I don't want your loving, I don't wanna be just friends, knowing all this time we were playing pretend.
It's a mystery.